Hello, and welcome to a video that has been taking me forever to get filmed. There is things happening all around me, so if you hear noises, pretend that you don't. It's 4/13, so happy 4/13 to you if this comes out on 4/13. If it doesn't come out on 4/13, happy 4/13 observed. If you don't know what 4/13 is kind of known as the Homestuck Day, and if you don't know what Homestuck is, bless you. I unfortunately do. Homestuck is a webcomic about these 4 teens who start playing a video game and then kind of get transported into the game and space, and there are trolls and dream worlds and it's a lot of stuff that happens in this webcomic. But I was really into Homestuck in its peak at around probably like 2012 through 2016. And if you weren't on Tumblr on that time, I don't think you could understand the full effect that the Homestuck fandom has. I think that Homestuck was a cultural phenomenon, but we will not know the lasting effects of for eons. I genuinely believe that years and years from now, there will be some professor talking about the cultural relevance of Homestuck. Even if you don't know what it is, I promise you, it has affected you. But I used to cosplay Homestuck when I was a wee teen. Met Andrew Hussey and everything. It was great. So 4/13 is the Homestuck Day, and even now, I am no longer into Homestuck, but it does still send me into a little spiral every time. There are just some things that I can never see without thinking about Homestuck anymore, like astrology signs and certain colors are never safe anymore. But the other day, my friend asked me if I had read the published Homestuck fanfiction, and I went, pardon? And they went, yeah, there's this book called Gideon the Ninth, and it's published Homestuck fanfiction. And I went, okay, well now I have to read it. I had heard a lot of things about Gideon the Ninth before I knew that it was a Homestuck fanfiction. The Homestuck fanfiction part really sent me over the edge. So I decided I would read it, and what a time that was. It's not a Homestuck fanfiction, by the way. The author has previously written Homestuck fanfiction, if you care to read it. I did not, but it is there. But this is not Homestuck fanfiction. I think people need to understand the difference between published fanfiction and an author who has previously written fanfiction and someone who is just inspired by things. So I see a lot of people saying that things are published fanfiction when they aren't. The Love Hypothesis is published fanfiction. That was a fanfiction on Archive of Our Own about Rey and Kylo Ren, and they just switched a few things and renamed the characters and copied and pasted and published it, right? That is published fanfiction. If it is not a fic that has been published and then rebranded, it is not published fanfiction, okay? Daisy Jones and the Six, someone said that that was fanfiction. That is not fanfiction. That is just a story that's inspired by Stevie Nicks or whoever the singer was. Gideon the Ninth, not published fanfiction, although I can see where the Homestuck inspiration is in this novel. A lot of the comedic relief and the way the characters act is very reminiscent of the Homestuck humor that was around. And the relationship, I would say Harrow and Gideon's relationship is kismasis, if I say so myself. If that sent you into a deep dive, I'm so sorry. The relationships that the characters have, I can see it. The way the characters interact and the way the world is kind of shaped, I can see the Homestuck inspiration. However, I would not say that this is Homestuck fanfiction at all. And the acts, because there are acts in this book. There's like act 1, 2, 3, I think there are like 5 acts. That's a Homestuck thing as well. It's pretty Homestuck coded. I can see where the inspiration came from. However, this is certainly not a Homestuck fanfiction, and if it was at any point once a Homestuck fanfiction, it has been so rebranded and rechanged that I don't look at it and go, oh yeah, I know which characters these are. Because like, for example, with the Love Hypothesis, I know that that is Kylo Ren. I mean, his name is Adam in the book. If you were like, hey, try and figure out what like fanfiction pairing this is, I would be able to guess Kylo and Rey. With this, I do not think that any of these characters are similar enough to Homestuck characters where I could say this is a Homestuck fanfiction. The closest I could say would be like gender bent Dave Strider and Rose Lalonde, but even that is pushing it. If anything, they're more reminiscent of trolls. We're getting off topic. I read Gideon the Ninth for 413 because I thought it would be fun. I did eventually have a good time, but I've gotta say, this book didn't really make any sense at all, and I don't think it, now that I've finished it, I still don't think it makes sense. I didn't even rate it on Goodreads because I don't know if I can consider it a good book if for the first 250 pages I could not bring myself to read. Is it a good book if I liked the last 100 pages? I don't know. I've made the argument before that if you need to read the first 100 pages to get into a book, it's not a good book. And I had to read 250 pages of this book before I even knew what was going on. But the last like 150 pages were just so good that I want to say that it's like a 4 to 5 star read, but I don't think I can in good conscience. Gideon the Ninth is about these two characters from the 9th planet, which is each planet has like a sub necromancer field, and the 9th planet's like necromancer specialty is bones. So we have Harrow, who is like the heir to the 9th house, and she's a necromancer. And then we have Gideon, who is her cavalier sword fighter. She's very strong, very like himbo energy, and really good with a sword. They all go to this planet, and there are like 2 people, like 1 cavalier and 1 necromancer from each of the 9 planets, and they have to try and figure out how to become Likers, which are immortals, and they have to do this by practicing all sorts of necromancy and finding keys and doing tests and stuff. That's my best interpretation of this book. And let me tell you again, like, even though I was really struggling for the first like 200 pages, I was intrigued by the characters. The problem is, in this plot, they don't go over anything. Even when they first get to the planet and teacher is telling them like, oh, you can't open, just please don't open any locked doors without permission. Go on. The world is your oyster. And they're all like, wait, but like how, what are we supposed to do? And he's like, well, I don't know. That's not for me to figure out. I'm not trying to be a liker. You've got this. Go on, go do it. From the very beginning, it's very confusing, and it's not like there's a lot of world building. It's more, we're just following Gideon around eating soup, and the entire time I'm like, but why, but where, but what are we doing on this planet? And we don't really find out for another like 100 pages. I saw this post and someone said that it was really interesting that the author of the Locked Tomb series decided to put the books in the point of view of the character who had the least idea of what's happening. And I think that's a really great way to explain how confusing this book was. Gideon does not know what's going on. Gideon is wandering the halls, eating soup, and occasionally sword fighting with some people. Whereas Harrow is doing all of the like locked door challenges and getting these keys and doing like a bunch of research. And we don't see any of it because we're just stuck with Gideon, who's not doing anything. It makes you struggle till you get to the nice, fun, interesting bits. I would say it's almost worth it because the ending is just so insane. I still don't understand what happened with the ending. I want to read the second book because I want to know what happened, but I don't know if I'm willing to put myself through another 250 pages of not knowing what's happening. And I know Kari Can Read really loves this series, and she said that the 3rd book she was looking on Wiki because she didn't understand what was happening. And I just don't know if I'm willing to do that to myself. If you've read the series, please tell me if it's worth it to read Harrow, because I feel like the reviews of this series are either 5 stars, this was the best book I've ever read, or 1 star, this was terrible and a mess. And I gotta agree with both of them, because this really is a hot mess. It's very, it does really give off Homestuck vibes, because I feel like in the same sense, I had no idea what was happening in Homestuck the entire time. I didn't even finish it. I got to Act 6 of Act 3 of Act 5, I think is where I had to stop, because I really just lost the plot. That being said, Homestuck is now officially finished, so congrats to Andrew Hussey for finishing that. Would I recommend this book? I don't know. I feel like the only people who are going to enjoy this book are people who either know enough about this book to power through or also liked Homestuck, because really it's got a lot of elements of Homestuck in the sense that you just don't know what's happening and you just like, you're there for the characters but the plot is just confusing. It's just a long haul until you get to where the book gets really enjoyable. I think page like 350, Harrow finally sits Gideon down and says, it's time to tell you everything, and I literally like jumped for joy because I was like, finally I get to know what the hell is happening here. Would I recommend this book? I don't know. I would love to know if you've read the rest of the Locked Tomb series. I would love to know if it's worth it to continue. I've seen things on the like Gideon the Ninth Locked Tomb tag that makes me want to read more, but I just don't know if I'm willing to commit to another 3 books where the first 200 pages are almost unbearable to get through. But if you've read the books and you say that it's worth it, maybe I'll try and read them. I really just wanted to read this book because I thought it would be fun to read it for 413. Even though I haven't been into Homestuck for a really long time, 413 comes around every year and I still go, oh god, I remember when I was a Homestuck. It's just something that sticks with you. So that's what I've got for you guys. I don't know if I would recommend this book, honestly, but I think if you have the willpower, or if you are willing to just ignore the fact that it makes no sense, you'll have a great time, because really the like, I can't get over how good the ending gets. You know when people are trying to recommend you a book and they're like, the first 3 books are terrible, but it gets so good, and you're like, but if the first 3 books are terrible, why would I read it? That's how I feel with this series. Happy 413. I thought I would read the Homestuck book for 413, and it was a time, really. But yeah, so yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you on the flippity flop. Peace, peace.
You can't fight the Homestuck.